It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. All right, hopefully you guys can hear us. There's a little delay. You guys getting us out there in TV land? Just making sure. There we are. All right. We have a good connection. All systems are go. Welcome everybody to this week's show. Ow, broken finger, broken leg. I wanted to come to beautiful Nampa, Idaho this week because Matt Vander Boegh, right there in that orange shirt, happens to live here. And he was so kind. He's done 3 taxi-related videos. I didn't know he was doing them. He's an old friend at this point. He's been a taxi member for a long, long time. And I just thought it would be cool to come up and hang out with this group of gentlemen behind me. Reason being that Matt has been mentoring them for many years now. Some of them even have joined taxi, come to the road rally. And I just thought it would be fun to hang out with a group of musicians other than at the office or at the road rally. So thanks for hosting this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure.
Thank you guys for showing up. Wow, I can't believe we've got a decent shot on a webcam, pretty decent audio going on the microphone. I can't see, just so you guys know, we can't see the chat. We're about 8 or 10 feet away from the computer, so we can see the chat's moving, but we can't read if you have questions. So I want to start out asking you a few things about the mentor group. Does it have a name?
You know, we've never put a name to this thing. Yeah, it doesn't have a name. No, it's nameless.
Well, then I'm sorry I thought of that question right there at the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
How many years have you been doing this?
This has been going just over 8 years now. The first group time we got together was in the spring of 2017.
Wow.
So 8 years.
And what did you do during COVID? Just not do it, or you did it virtually?
We did some virtual things on COVID. It kind of petered out a little bit.
Yeah.
But we got together on Zoom a couple of times.
Well, here's an interesting thing about this is that it hasn't petered out.
Yeah.
And I've seen other people in other parts of the country. I don't think anybody in Europe or Asia has done it yet, but other parts of the U.S. where people have started these groups. And the only 2 that I know that have survived there's one in Nashville and there's one in Los Angeles. And I give you a lot of credit for keeping it together, but something that's different about this one than the one in LA and Nashville is that you are the mentor to these people. You're not charging anybody anything, right? This is all free. And so I know you're a pretty humble guy unless you're ripping your clothes off on a what do you call it? On a bodybuilding stage. Not at that kind of stage. No, Matt's a bodybuilder. He's got a big competition coming up this coming Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
So yeah, he had to sit there and watch me eat sushi before while he was busy
drinking water.
Drinking water. Anyway. Why? I mean, you're a busy guy. Music is your entire income. You do weightlifting. You've got a popcorn company, Dad's Popcorn.
Yep.
Why do you do this? I mean, they seem like nice enough guys, but why do you take the time and why do you do it for free? I know other people that charge for stuff like that.
Let me tackle that one first, because everything that I do to help people musically, I never take money from any composers or songwriters because I know how it is to be a broke composer. And I'm not going to sit here and fleece people and take their money.
Well, fleecing them would be giving them something or taking their money for nothing.
Yeah.
So no fleecing going on here, but it's noble, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way.
Yeah, there's just too many people out there that charge a lot of money for stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be one of those. It's not like I don't need the money that I could make from charging a membership to these guys. Like, do I need the money that's going to lose my friends? I don't need it that much.
What was your goal? Was it you that had the idea to do this?
It was me that had the idea. So what had happened was back in oh gosh, probably 2013 or so. I was working at the local newspaper.
Okay.
And there were a couple of guys there. We were all trying to write novels. So this is I'm going to go way back in time, but we were all trying to write novels. And
so this was before I met you?
This was before you met me.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we knew that we were all trying to be these amateur authors. And I had taken some classes in college, these writing workshops where people would submit a chapter of a novel they were writing, and everyone in the class would like offer feedback and commentary. And it just helped you be so much better as a writer.
Oh, really? It wasn't a case of like the blind leading the blind?
There was a little bit of
yeah, because oftentimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah, but the teacher was, she had a couple of best-selling novels to her name, so she was in charge of it, but everyone would chime in with like, this is what I liked about it.
So she was able to keep it on the rails.
She kind of facilitated it,
Okay.
yeah. And so I thought, well, we're all trying to write novels. Why don't I just have you guys over to my house and we'll read each other's stuff and then give feedback. Well, we did that for about a year, and then there was only like 5 of us. A couple of guys moved away, and it just deteriorated. But it was so fun that I thought, once I started getting success with music, I thought I could probably take that exact same concept and apply it to the music world. And I just remember thinking, how cool would this have been when I was trying to be a rock star and our band was writing music? Like, we never bounced it off anybody. And so we never got feedback. It was just, you wrote a song and then you played it on stage or you recorded it. And that was like what you came up with. That was it. But you never got feedback. And I thought, how cool would that have been back in that stage of my career?
Right.
To actually have a group together where you could workshop music to make it better. And at this time, I was already getting some traction in the TV business. And so I thought, well, why don't I want to call up all these guys that I played music with in college. So this was the idea.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't a word of mouth thing?
Okay, well, so aside from Johnny and Brendan and Steve here in the back row,
right,
those are the only guys who were some of the original invitees.
And you knew them because the studio.
Just way back in the day. Yeah, Steve owns a studio I did a lot of recording at.
Right.
Brendan and I played music together over 20 years now. Okay. And Johnny and I taught together, still teach together at the community college.
Okay.
So I had all these people that when I was in college, we were all trying to be rock stars. And everyone, like to a fault, always said, I just want to make music for a living. And I wish I could just find a way to turn music into my job. And so finally I was like, well, I've turned it into my job, and I could teach all these great musicians how to do it too. So I put this email together, and I forget the number. It was like 13 or 18, a pretty big number in the teens of people. And invited them all over, and I kind of explained the idea of what I wanted to do. And the very first meeting had a lot of people.
Okay.
And I was like, this is going to be a really cool thing. And then the second meeting, a little bit less. And the third, a little bit less. And by like the fourth one, it was me and Johnny and like one other person.
This is exactly how I've seen it go for other people that tried to do it.
And
well, I'm amazed that,
I about folded it, actually. And I remember telling Johnny, I was like, I don't think people are into this. I'm just going to, well, this might be our last one. And he said, well, if you don't mind, I know some people that I think would be really into this. And he's like, I didn't want to infringe on you and like, because this is kind of your baby, and I didn't want to invite people to your thing. But he said, if you're about ready to call it quits, then how about I throw out a lifeline and invite a few other people?
Okay.
And I said, well, yeah, sure. Like in my head, it was just me hanging out with all my old college friends, talking music. And I was like, well, I don't know these people, but if this keeps the group alive, let's give it a shot. And so Johnny invited a few, and those people invited a few, and then I met Sean and Kyle when I was still teaching at Boise State. And then it just kind of it grew organically, really, and is not made up of any of the original people except for those 3 back there who have been part of it since the beginning.
And doesn't it make you wonder why the people that were part of the original thing dropped out?
Because I wonder all the time.
Yeah, I've seen this happen over and over again. Same thing with taxi members. People join for a year and maybe get a forward or two and then a bunch of rejections, and they put their tail between the legs and go away for a while.
Yeah.
And then they come back 4 years later and they join for another year or two. Then they go away and they come back. It could be life gets in the way.
Yeah.
Your kids are getting older. You have to take them to Little League practice, whatever life throws at you. But I give you guys a lot of credit for coming to this on a regular basis, because let's face it, musicians are creative types, not always great business types. Some are all right, we're taking you to the pound. Shut up.
Sorry about my
Oh, did I just say that on live? I got injured before. One of Matt's dogs savagely attacked me. Jumped up, tried to lick me to death. Anyway, so I give you guys a lot of credit for not. It'd be very easy to say on a Friday night, which is the night you normally do this on. It's date night with my wife or whatever, a million excuses to not do this. So for you guys to keep coming back and to keep learning, which is the most important thing, that's the secret sauce, I believe, as an outsider from the little bit that I've heard, is that you're a real guy who's really doing it and you're mentoring these people. You're not doing it for anything other than you want to give back.
Yeah.
And that's noble, and it's also productive. Because if you weren't mentoring, they would not have the motivation to come back. But they are clearly learning something every time. Do all you guys have that same disease where you want to make money with music? I mean, where you'd like that to be your day job?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you're getting my back. Part of my dream when I started Taxi is the music industry needs music. And there's a lot of music being made out of there. I just wanted to be a connector between the two. But as soon as I proposed the idea to, I took Rob Shirelli and my friend Robert Cordy out to dinner at McDonald's and pitched them on the idea of investing $10,000 each in the startup of Taxi.
Okay.
And they were like, why would people in the music industry want to get a bunch more music from amateurs? And then I started calling A&R people that I knew from back in my studio days, and they said, the last thing we need is more music. And I said, what about if somebody filtered it? And they said, well, who's going to filter it? And I said, how about out-of-work A&R people? Your own people will be filtering it for you, but I will be paying them. Okay. So for the same reasons you're doing this, I was able to create a very real path for musicians who had the dream to accomplish the dream if they're willing to put in the work, which most people aren't, but these guys are.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's just been, like, if I'm going to speak very highly of all these guys back here, because many of them have been part of this group for many years.
Yeah.
And just to watch their progress, it's just been awesome. It really is awesome. And people are getting successes and their music is getting so much better. And so there's like a little bit of pride, like a father's pride. Not that like you guys are my kids, but you get to watch. I get to watch all these guys get better.
I say that at the road rally every year. For me, I feel like a proud dad standing off on the sidelines, looking out at the room of, a couple thousand people, many of whom tell me I've gotten so much better since I joined Taxi. Industry people. Every year, Michael Lloyd comes up to me and says, the music I get from Taxi every year goes up exponentially. And I feel like that proud dad because some people take it seriously. They show up, they learn, they get better, they succeed.
Yeah.
I wish everybody would drink from that cup.
Yeah. Yep.
It's pretty. How do you run the hang? I mean, does it just go any way it wants to go, or do you actually have an agenda every
It's
week?
actually a pretty good question. So one thing that we do. That's a bad question. Well, one thing we do every time we get together, pretty much every time we get together, is I let people bring 2 pieces of music. One of them, which they'll play for feedback from everybody, like constructive criticism stuff. Here's what you could do better. Have you thought about doing this? Johnny's great with lyric stuff. He'll hash people's lyrics out. I'll give production tricks and stuff like that. But it's just, they play a piece of music, we offer suggestions to make it better. And then we'll usually play one more, which is just like, hey, I'm really proud of this one and I just want you to hear it. So but it's mostly focused on listening to music that's in development still before it's done, so that so we can workshop the stuff and they can go back and implement the changes before they make that final copy.
I am so happy that you take that approach. You've got to know this from just being around Taxi for so long. So many people put off joining Taxi until I can have a big catalog of stuff. What they don't realize is, okay, great, you took 4 years and put together a big catalog of stuff that's not right.
Yeah. You wasted 4 years making the wrong stuff.
Right.
Good.
And it's not a judgment on whether their music is good or bad, but as you and I know, and I assume these guys are learning or know already, which is success in film and TV is about having the right music for the right moment, the right scene. It's not about, did you write a hit song? It's great if it's catchy and it's an awesome song, but I've always said a B+ song could get a placement faster than an A+ song, because the B+ song fits the storyline or fits the mood or the tension or the action in the scene. So it's great that these guys are getting that from this group of peers and from you, Mr. Longtime Experienced guy who started out as an absolute abject failure. He did.
Very true.
For those of you watching, I'm not just being cruel. Matt and I are longtime friends, and he literally started out wanting to be a rock star. And then figured out that wasn't going to work, so then he wanted to be a hit country songwriter because he knew what a can of beer looked like in a pickup truck and thought it was that easy. And then mutual friends of ours named James at one of the road rallies said to him, dude, have you ever thought about film and TV? Because the most successful people in Taxi, that's what they're doing. And he, I kid you not, I've been to his other house before he bought this one 5 years ago. His old house, he took a shed like you would park a riding lawnmower in, put a floor in there, put an air conditioner in it, had a mid-level iMac, a $200 microphone, and didn't even have initially a regular keyboard, like a musical keyboard, only had your QWERTY keyboard, and he would type the note A on the letter A. And B was
That's
B.
how I started.
He knew nothing. And now you literally, I know a lot of you know this story because you're Taxi members that are watching, but for those who aren't, there's not an hour in the day that his music is not playing somewhere all over the world. So whatever ethos, if I want to sound really like I graduated from Harvard, whatever ethos you had, whatever it was that you brought to the game, you now understand what works. And these guys are so fortunate to have a fearless leader sharing what you've learned, which is just
thanks.
It's incredible. So I contend that's why other groups that haven't flourished, that have started but didn't flourish, don't have that person at the top.
Yeah.
So, yay. All right, well, I'm done. I'm going to go have some pizza. What more would you like to say about the group? Because you obviously know more.
Maybe you guys can help me out, but I was going to mention another thing that we typically do, aside from spend 45 minutes eating and just small talking downstairs.
How long does the meetings usually last?
We usually start at 7 o'clock on a Friday night and then go till midnight.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
we're late owls. I mean, but, it's not a captive audience. People leave when they need to. But the latest of us are past midnight.
Okay.
Because we'll finish up upstairs here, and then we'll go downstairs and we'll talk more. And it's a long night. But in all the good ways.
But yeah, productive long night.
Yeah, but one thing that we also do is I try to have some type of a learning activity that I could run through with these guys to teach them a lesson of like how to do things properly.
Give an example.
Oh gosh.
Like how to make stems?
No, nothing that technical.
On that one. Edit points.
Yeah, we've done one on edit points. The one I just did the last time we were together, which was like a month ago. I gave everyone little cards that said yes or no. I think it said yes or no.
Okay.
And I told everyone to send me one piece of, or 2 pieces of music or something like that. But I said it's for an activity, and I didn't explain what the activity was. So they sent in a couple of tracks. And I said, okay, so I went through the whole concept of how long their music is actually going to be given a chance when an editor sits down to try to find the right piece of music. And I went back to words from another music library owner, Joy Basu, who said that he gives each piece of music about 1 second before he knows if it's something that he wants to work with.
And he's not alone.
No.
And it's not just library owners. It's editors who choose the music for virtually all reality shows.
And
music supervisors.
I went through my own process of just finding a kick drum, and I was like, look, here's 500 kick samples. Here's how long I'm going to give it. Dun, 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 and I just went arrow, arrow, that fast. And then I finally found one that was good enough. It's good enough.
It's been your kick drum now for 12 years?
Well, I mean, I'm a lot. But I was trying to impress upon them the fact that you have this very small window of time for your music to win someone over. And so what I did is I had a stopwatch, and I would play their music for 4 seconds.
Wow.
And at 4 seconds it stopped, and everyone had to raise their thing, yes or no. Are you still interested in listening to more of this piece of music after those 4 seconds?
Did you give them the instruction, or at least the idea, that they're not listening for, do I like it? They're listening for, is it usable?
Yeah, I believe so. Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Seems like something I would have said.
Like you've given it a purpose.
Yeah. So I'm just like, not just like, hey, we're trying to find a hit song here, but is this music capturing your notice, or your attention somehow? Is something happening in this 4 seconds that's going to make you want to listen beyond second number 4 to see if this is something you want to try out in the video? So that's
a great idea.
Yeah, that was a fun little activity. I've done other things where, didn't we do one once where you guys had to come up with a title? Like we played music and they had to title it.
Was this before ChatGPT was invented?
Yeah. This was many years ago. And then we did one where you had to pick the genre.
Oh,
so we'd play people's music.
Fun.
It's like, okay, everyone, you just have to write it down. What genre was this music?
Did you get answers like, this would be really good in a chase scene?
I'm sure. I think we did.
That's not a genre.
Yeah, what kind of genre?
Because I've done that on Taxi TV. People put in stuff. It's not. I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing with them. But they will say stuff like, this would be really good for a breakup scene. Okay, but what is the genre of music?
Yeah.
Same thing with moods.
Yeah.
Describe the mood. Or
this is what I used to say about my own music, so I'm making fun of myself here. This was way back in the country days.
Yeah.
Say, this is like Quentin Tarantino music.
Oh.
Like, what is Quentin Tarantino a genre?
Right.
But yeah, so there's things you don't think about until you're in, like, deep in the business. Like, you have to have that identifiable genre, because that's how your music is getting categorized by these music libraries. They're not going to find a folder that says Quentin Tarantino. So you got, or breakup, or I don't know, whatever. You could find sad and sappy and bittersweet singer-songwriter. But yeah, chase scene, probably not going to be a genre.
I think you and I should do a panel at the Road Rally. I'll have to go back and watch this, but you and I should co-moderate a panel where we do this with the audience at the Road Rally.
Let's do it.
I think that would be fun. All right, so other stuff that goes on during the 5 hours, or it sounds like that could, eat up a lot of it, and then there's the, pizza time and hanging out, BSing with your friends time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Collabs.
What?
Collab session.
Oh yeah. We've done
collabs.
We've done some really cool things. One time I printed off a taxi prompt, a listing, and everyone had to write the beginning of a song. Like, I partnered people up in like groups of 3, and they had to write verse and chorus of that song
then and there,
within 1 hour. And I was like, go to some place else in this house. It wasn't my house that time. We were at someone else's house. And they had to come back in, and then after an hour, we performed the verse and the chorus.
Wow.
And that was fun. And then I did...
did anything really awesome come out of it?
I think so. It's been a while.
One of the sessions, we had 4 groups, and I think 2 of them got forwards. from it.
So they
that
went
was
on to
when we
make
when we actually completed
Like
the
a whole-
songs.
yeah,
for
that
this.
was a little more.
They ended up getting forwards from
Second
taxi.
2 hour
Yeah, 2 out of the 3
Wow,
groups
he
got
should get
forwards.
25%.
Yeah. And then we did a really cool thing a couple years ago, which I really want to revive. It was a 48-hour songwriting challenge.
Okay.
So everybody came over and we randomly drew numbers out of a hat and assigned people into groups. And they were groups of 3. And it's just by random drawing, you got stuck with a couple other people. And then I had 2 taxi listings, and you could pick one or the other, and you had 48 hours to make something, like a submittable song, because
Wow.
they were all submitted to the listing. And I threw a little curveball at them, because we have a great guy who's not here tonight, but he's a drummer, a phenomenal drummer. And so the curveball I threw was...
Ironic, the drummer didn't have time to come tonight.
Yeah, I think he's like in Nashville or somewhere right now. But the curveball I threw was that whatever song people wrote, he had to do live drums on.
Wow.
And so he spent all Sunday morning recording drums, and then he kicked those stems out to whoever was the producer in the group. And then at the end of the 48 hours, we got together at Steve's studio.
Okay.
And we played all the music and just had a little party there, and it was awesome. And a couple people got forwards out of that too. And it was super fun. So those are the kind of things we do in this group.
How many of you guys have home studios? All of you?
So,
Okay, everybody.
Loosely described.
Yeah, loosely described it, yeah.
How many of you been to a taxi road rally? Wow, a lot of
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
I talked to Matt. We were texting or emailing or something over the course of the weekend. Maybe yesterday while I was in transit getting here. I said, what the hell are we going to talk about? A lot of these guys, you know, you've learned so much from him, much of what, not to be immodest and take credit where I shouldn't, but much of what Matt has learned, I'm certain, has come from
Oh,
Taxi
yeah.
and the Road
Yeah.
Rally and the newsletter and the forums and all those things over the years. So I figured, you guys probably know everything. What the hell? Why am I going to Idaho? These guys have nothing left they could ask me that they don't already know. But I'm enjoying learning about this because
Yeah.
I think other people should do it. But it takes a leader.
Yeah.
It really does. It's left to their own well-intentioned devices. My experience from seeing many of these try to start over the years is it's fun the first time. Wow, we got to hang out with a bunch of like-minded people. Next time, half the number of people
Yep.
come. The third time, 3 guys show up. Just exactly
Yeah.
what you described.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So what else? Anything else you want to mention about the group before we move
Well,
on to questions?
the only other thing that I would say is not about this group specifically, but just for anyone out in the world who's looking to put something like this together, there's an email list that we have that goes out to about 25 different people, and these are most of the regulars, and some of our regulars couldn't make it today, but we usually have 12 to 15 people up here on any night that we do these things. And if I can find 12 to 15 people in little old Nampa, Idaho.
Which Matt always says is little. I
Yeah.
found out today it's 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, that's not little, but it ain't L.A. or New York or Chicago.
Right. It's not a major metropolitan area or anything. It's definitely not tiny either. But if I can find this many people that are interested in pursuing this career here in Nampa, Idaho, of all places, then I would be willing to bet that every city or larger town has enough people to pull something like this together.
The people are there.
That's
the leader.
Yeah, maybe that's the missing ingredient.
Yeah, you've got to have, and most people aren't willing. I've seen, we do have some successful taxi members over the years, probably, and not to denigrate them, but not as successful as you've been, but people that have had a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen placements over a period of some years. They clearly know more about sync than other musicians in their area. Mm-hmm. So yes, there's something to be learned, but they're charging to teach it.
Yeah, I know.
And you're not. You're the guy who has motivated this group to keep showing up, imparted all this great information. You're not charging. So maybe money is the reason that the other groups don't grow is people
Could
just
be.
don't want to pay.
Yeah, and that could be part of the, I assuming that it is a big part of the reason actually, but like I said, I'll never charge anybody. I wouldn't be able to sleep with myself. Sleep. Oh, whatever. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
How old's your daughter?
Where was I going with that?
I don't know.
thought?
By the way,
Oh!
I meant to ask you this before when we got back from running an errand to buy. Oh no, I was going to say buy a Band-Aid after I was viciously attacked by your dog that tried to lick me to death. Am I going to see Espen, or is she? Your
No,
mom's
she's
or
with her
daughter?
mom.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, send her my best.
I will.
I
I remembered where I was going to go with this.
don't know.
Yeah, not charging people,
Oh,
but
yeah.
for a while I was making all the food, and I was spending a lot of money on food and stuff.
We're glad that he's not doing that.
And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna, and I was buying all the drinks too. So I was like,
Yeah, it's a couple $100 for
Yeah,
get together.
yeah.
Wow.
And so at some point I decided, yeah, this is going to be a potluck. So we've been doing potluck for years now, and everybody brings something, and we never eat it all. So people usually go home with their leftovers and plenty of stuff to go around. But yeah, that's the cost of admission is a bag of chips or whatever you want to bring.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
All right, so as I said to these guys, I should look at the camera a little bit today. As I said to these guys before we started, they can ask me anything. We could talk about this group. I want to hear more about the group. This isn't, like the taxi adoration hour. So much it is me wanting to thank you and acknowledge you for doing this for these guys,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is
Well, it's my
really,
pleasure.
really, really
Yeah.
spectacular. Because it wouldn't last without you. I doubt that it would. I mean, no
No.
offense to anybody in the room. Just experience has told me that unless you have an engine, that these things tend to fall apart. So
Yeah.
good on you for being the engine.
Yeah. Chug it, choo choo.
I want to go check it. Yeah, I haven't seen any movement over here. Everything going okay as far?
I hope can they all hear us? That would really be bad if they couldn't.
Can everybody hear us? Everything's going away tech-wise? Yes. Okay, good.
Okay. Well, you want to start on questions?
Yeah, we can start on questions. We can start on comments. We can anything.
Yeah.
Literally anything. We've got an hour.
Okay, perfect. Well, I got one question that was emailed
Okay.
by Todd Dunnigan. Todd, if you're watching, Todd and Michelle are part of
Oh, yeah.
True Swans.
Right.
Not part of. They are True Swans. They're a duo. Todd's question, I thought you'd like this one. Can me and Michelle be on Taxi TV before Michael retires?
Why does everybody keep talking about me retiring?
It's been a goal of ours forever. We have an interesting way of working, which I think would be of interest to the viewers. And they do. So Michelle lives in Canada, and Todd's here in Boise, right? Boise somewhere. And they've been phenomenally successful, and they do everything just over the internet. So
How did they meet? At a road rally or something? Or were they...
he's told me before, and I can't remember now that I'm
were
on the
they
spot.
musically involved before
was
they became
doing-
taxi
He was
members?
playing live up in where she lives, and she came to see him.
Where does she live? Vancouver?
No, way up in the middle of central Canada.
Yeah, some tiny place that gets to negative 50 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, soon she'll be an American because I've heard we're buying Canada.
That's what I told her too. I believe she showed me one of her fingers. The middle one. Anyways, that was Todd's question. I just thought I'd
All right,
throw that out to you.
Let me ponder, Todd. Give me a couple days to get reacclimated when I get back from this trip. I'm flying back tomorrow morning to LA. And call me so we can dig deeper into what it is that we might do.
Yeah.
I just figured out the program I use is not Zoom. It's much more complex, has a lot more stuff in it, but it makes it harder to operate. And I just finally figured out, like 10 days ago, how to get a computer screen dragged into my live thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's,
Yeah, because I saw you doing that a couple
yeah,
shows ago.
yeah, because I was doing so many on that show. I was showing edit points and button endings and stuff. I pre-recorded a bunch of them, so I had them ready to go. Had no chance of any technical failures, and it worked out well. But yeah, one of the things in setting up a taxi TV is, number one, will it have mass appeal? Do a lot of people want to learn what it is we're going to talk about today? And the other thing is, can we do it in an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Sometimes people come up with great ideas, but it's a 5-minute show or a 10-minute show, or there's some technical reason that I can't do it. So the answer is yes, Todd, call me.
All right. Well, Steve, you want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
Let's
let's
bring
bring a
up-
hot seat.
Hey.
Hi,
Michael,
Steve.
thank you so much for coming here.
Oh,
man.
my
This is-
pleasure.
This is a thrill. So,
Wow, he's easily entertained, this one.
Oh, I'll tell you, Steve's the one that introduced me to taxi. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been a member since 2003, and
Wow.
I think I've only missed, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 rallies I've been to since you moved to the West End. I think you moved there like 2 years before I think I first went, is what I
Okay.
heard. But yeah, I've met lots of people that I've stayed in touch with all these years, and it's been a cool thing. Matt doesn't have any friends. That's why we're all here.
Well, it's because it's personality. He's such
I
a
know.
wallflower.
Real toxic.
It's really hard to get him to talk, but sometimes, But I met Todd Dunnigan was actually my business partner, and we met. Was he still my business partner when you first came and did your recordings?
No.
So it must have been just right afterwards. He for his thesis in college, he did a rock opera.
Yep.
And he wrote. So don't let him sell himself short about how talented he was in the beginning. As a sync composer, maybe not so much, but he's a brilliant. He's probably more in the lines of a producer, really, because he can hear and he really knows what to do. So we met him coming into the studio to do a rock opera.
Wow.
And he came back and did
Another one.
Yep. And then he came back to record his country record. And that's when he started talking about like getting these to artists. And I said, man, you should check out Taxi. So that's how that started.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, it was fun because there's so many things to talk about. Sometimes the connection of how that all happened was left out about how that worked. So what I'm going to talk about is not a question.
Okay.
It's something that I find super fascinating, and I think that people will really like to hear about this. What started me thinking about it was when I sat down with you at a rally a couple of years ago, just by chance. I came in, I saw Matt, and he was sitting there with me, and he goes, "Oh, come on in," So I got
remember that in
yeah.
the ballroom after everybody cleared out at the end of the rally.
It was
that
the very
Right
beginning.
before it started.
Yeah, it was the very,
yeah.
very beginning of the rally. And he said, Steve owns a studio that I recorded at or whatever. So you started talking about your time as an engineer, and I think you mentioned at that moment about Triad in Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yeah,
and,
good memory.
Somehow we had a brief conversation about something. I was in the middle of doing a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young tribute, and you told me something about the history that you had with them. So I was like, I wonder how many people in the taxi world know they know that you were an engineer, but I don't think they know the depth of what you did. And so I was like, oh wow, that's I'm going to look into that at some point and try to find out more information about that.
You didn't tell him I recorded Abbey Road?
Well, I will now. The other day, this is so funny. After I found out you were coming, I saw that a new Neil Young record was coming out. I was like, oh my God, a new Neil Young record. That's because I'm a real big Neil Young fan. So I looked at the record and I was so confused because the record said 1977 on it. And the record was released this year, like 2 months ago, I think.
Right, on Valentine's Day,
Is that
actually,
what it was?
February 14th.
So I'm like, this is so cool, man. And I was looking at the record. It's called Oceanside Countryside. Recorded in 1977, the year before Comes a Time came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it, and lo and behold, on the credits is Michael Laskow. And I was like, holy crap, Michael was the engineer on 5 of the songs on this record.
Yeah.
And I think that is, I don't know, I just thought people should know.
Well, thanks for telling them, Mom. I appreciate it. I mean, I don't think the record is widely known. I mean, only Neil's fans will buy it.
Yeah.
But I can give you an inside scoop on the record that's not on the credits anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, I can. Only people watching the show or people that work with me who've probably heard it 10 times know this stuff. But I was the second engineer on Stills and Young. Started a record at Criteria, which was where I started my career.
Okay.
I was like 19, 20 years old. And they were working with, second engineer was a friend of mine named Stephen Hart. And then Crosby and Nash joined the record. Like out of thin air, one day everybody was buzzing at the studio. And the front office called me and said, we need another second engineer on this record. And then for whatever reason, I can't remember, I think it might have been a health reason, Steve Hart dropped off the record and I was it. And Don Gaiman, who was one of my mentors at Criteria, later went on to do like Jack and Diane with John Mellencamp and REM, all that stuff. He was the first engineer and I believe co-producer with Stephen and Neil on it. Anyway, Crosby and Nash, all 4 of the guys worked for like 37 days straight without leaving the building. They would work in 2 12-hour shifts, each group of the 2 of them. We finished that record, and it ended up being Stills Young, Long May You Run. It never came out as a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young record because there was a little divorce action going on there. And then like a year and a half later, one day I was at a meeting with a music attorney about a record that I was literally getting ready to sign a production agreement for a record I was going to start, and the receptionist from Triad called and said, Neil Young is standing in the lobby. And I said, okay, what up with that? And she goes, he says he wants to do a record. And honestly, I was a little crestfallen because Neil was not into fidelity. He always used to make jokes that he and Bob Dylan, we don't exactly follow audio verite, if you know what I mean. You know? And so I mean, all engineers kind of like, oh, a Neil record. I can't make it sound pretty and sexy, and I'm not going to have all the other engineers drooling over my work. So anyway, I stopped what I was doing. I drove back to the studio. I walk in, and Neil goes, oh, hey, I remember you. You want to do a record? And I said, sure. Where's the band? Where are the roadies? Where's the gear? And he goes, oh no, just us. Let's just do a record. And I said, well, where are the guitars? He goes, out in my car. He had a 1954 Ford station wagon, pink, two-tone, pink and white, with conch shells, like 50 of them glued to the roof of the car. And he says, check it out, man. It's the Cosmic Coral Wagon. So we unloaded guitars, brought them in the studio, opened the lids to let them acclimate. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He goes, let's just play around, make a record, you know? And he would just play.
So
and,
yeah, I noticed all 5 of the songs are just him and the guitar that you engineered are all...
well, some of them have things like a vibraphone overdubbed on them. Several of them have background vocals and stuff. Anyway, so we were working on this stuff, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days a week for months. Sometimes he would take a month off. One day he called me and said, I'm going to the beach, or I'm at the beach. I said, oh, great. I'm taking the day off. I'm at the beach. I said, great. Which beach? I'll meet you. I thought he was in Fort Lauderdale. He goes, Zuma, which is in California. You know? So I didn't meet him. But it was extremely normal. It was just myself, my assistant, and Neil.
Wow.
There were days,
That's
I'm going to do a little something I can't normally do on a taxi TV. There were times Neil would get up and just walk around the room with his acoustic guitar, you know, just like noodling on an idea. And I knew from working with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, you never ever turn off the tape machine. If they're in the room, you might miss a moment of genius. So literally, tape runs every minute they're in there. My poor assistant Paul had to take an 87 on a boom and followed me. The room was 43 feet deep by 25 wide, if I remember correctly, and my assistant Paul had to follow him around.
Like a location sound guy.
Yeah, but with a,
Yeah.
I mean, not on a
Studio.
carbon fiber pole with
Right.
a shotgun on the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's how the album was made. At one point, Neil, we were going to Nashville, and I said something like, we should do a 24 to 24 track safety before we fly. And we should also do some rough mixes. Let's just see where we're at with this thing. And we had 5, 6, 7 songs done. And with Neil, you never know. Is it going to be a record? Is it going to be a demo? Or is it going to come back 40 years later as an album?
Yeah.
So 15 years ago, my wife and I are in the garage. We're cleaning out the garage, find an old green suitcase from the 70s. I open it up. There were rolling papers, whatever, and they're from the 70s. And there's a 1/4-inch reel-to-reel that says NY on the box. And I went, why would I have a tape from New York on the box? Didn't think much of it. Then I realized what it was the night Neil and I did those very quick, like 10 minutes a song rough mixes. Good roughs, but roughs. I ran it simultaneously to two-track machines. Neil took one, I took the other. And what was sitting in that suitcase, which is now sitting in my office at Taxi, is exactly the countryside of Countryside Oceanside.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that is
So there's a little history on that record. And I've got to say, I loved working on it every minute because it was peaceful and fun and productive. And I learned, just like you guys are learning from Matt, Neil was mentoring me. He recognized that I was young. I was, 23 years old, engineering a Neil Young record. I think that was about my age. And one day he said to me, man, I understand why you care so much about EQ and compression, but working on sounds, it's not really what we should be doing. What you should be doing is listening to the vibe of what I just played and give me a little head nod. Did I nail it? Did I capture the emotion and the feeling of the song? I need that from you. Don't worry about it. As a matter of fact, I don't want you to use an equalizer or compressor ever again on this record.
Oh my gosh.
So that stuff you're hearing
Wow.
was recorded with no EQ and no compressor. That was me writing faders and Paul chasing them around with a microphone.
What was the console?
An MCI 528.
Was it really?
Wasn't famous for great sounding preamps or EQ.
Yeah.
Not famous at all.
Yeah. I had a 600 series MCI for years, and they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow. And so it probably had good mics though.
Yeah, we did have good mics. But I used primarily 87s on everything back then, just because it was what he was comfortable with. And that was, when you work with Neil, it's all about him being comfortable and just trusting that you're watching out for him so he can do what he does.
It was only the preamps from the console, no outboard preamps. Oh my gosh. Probably sounded great though still. I mean, E87s are usually going to be pretty open sounding. So did you have them on an Omni or on a
No, I
figure eight?
had them on cardioid, although I am a big fan of using mics in Omni. It's the least well-known secret of engineering is how great some mics sound in Omni. Like doing a French horn, having it play into the corner from 6 feet away and putting an Omni mic between the bell of the horn and the corner.
Get the reflection.
Yeah, you get a sound that you just don't get by putting a cardioid mic 6 inches from the bell out in the room.
Sounds like that's exactly how to capture what he was doing, is to have it on Omni.
I didn't though, just because, I mean, honestly, you never knew what he was. I mean, literally, he'd just stand up in the middle of a song and walk 10 feet away from the microphone, and you're sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, this is magic! It's making the hair on my arm stand up." And he gets up and walks away.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much for telling us a little bit more about that discovery, because I really feel like there's a lot of people all of us sort of engineer our own stuff, and so everybody's interested in the engineering side of it as well, and so it's just I feel like there's a lot of legitimacy to another part of you than just owning the company that has the idea of connecting people. You actually were working with an artist like that who is mentoring you in how to listen to music,
Right.
how to listen to actually recording and capturing the music. And I think that's pretty cool. So that's why I wanted to say.
One other, if I may add, just because I'm sitting here
Heck
geeking
yeah.
out with another engineer.
Yeah.
You know who Tom Dowd is?
That sounds familiar.
He did like the Aretha stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Allman Brothers, just legendary.
Mm-hmm.
He had two home bases, Atlantic Studios in New York and Criteria in Miami. So when I started out, he was the other mentor that I had, telling me one day, tell a quick story. No such thing as my staff is laughing right now. They know my stories are never quick. But we were working on an album, maybe the band, no, not the Outlaws, whoever, it doesn't matter. Oh, it was Clapton. And everybody was taking a break and going to lunch. And Tom Dowd said to me, and I was 21, 22 at the time, and he was probably 50, 55, and he says, you want to hang back and learn how to get a great acoustic guitar sound? And I said, yeah. I mean, this guy, everybody knew he was like one of the three masters of engineering and production in the world at the time. So, great. So everybody leaves, and he sits down in a chair. He goes, all right, get down on your knees.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And I went, I don't want to know how to get a great acoustic guitar. And he goes, not for that, you idiot. Get down and move your ear around the friggin' guitar when it sounds good. That's where you put the microphone.
That's funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I hardly ever a week goes by in my life where I don't feel incredibly blessed to have had that job at Criteria and work with the people that I did.
That's amazing. So you know exactly what it's like to engineer, especially in the analog world, which it's a little different. I mean, I'm still completely analog on the way going in, but of course,
Wow.
Pro Tools is where it goes.
Yeah.
I have a 2-inch machine, but so can you tell just a tiny little bit of the story about where you had to. You were supposed to destroy something, and you ended up making a copy of it before you had to destroy it. Somebody told you
I can't.
Can't talk about that.
Yeah, I can't talk about
Okay. I was just kidding. That didn't happen.
That's why you asked it cryptically.
Yeah, I will tell that story to family, friends, other engineers, but
Okay.
I can't tell it on something that's going to go on YouTube.
Yeah.
Let's just say that there is an unheard, unreleased record by a very famous group that got 45, 48, 50 years old now,
Yeah.
and it exists.
It'll
Not
be,
at my house.
It'll be
FBI.
released in 40 years. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
I'm
Yeah.
looking, are we going to the studio?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
I would love to see it.
That'd be great. That'd be so great.
Awesome.
All right.
Yay.
Who else would like to come up? Anybody?
Brandon has some good questions.
Brandon?
Yeah, you got some good questions, man.
Come on, Brandon.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
It's nice to have you here in
Thank you.
good old Idaho.
Thank you. I love Idaho. I've been here
We're
many,
all
many
grateful.
times.
These guys, I've learned a lot from them in the short time that I've been here. So I have some questions written down. but
Okay.
I'll just go with the one. It's about taxi.com.
Mm-hmm.
The tools and the features. Are there some pretty good tools and features that new taxi members might not know about, or ones that haven't really researched enough?
What do you mean by a tool and a feature?
There could be a knowledge base built into the website, or
We do have, by the way, a what do you call it? Not a dictionary. What do you call it with a bunch of words?
Glossary.
A glossary. We have a glossary.
Okay.
Nobody ever goes there. It's amazing to me. We have Taxi TV, which is a 15-year history of just about it. I was laughing this morning at the hotel when I was getting ready to come downstairs and meet you. I was laughing, thinking, I wonder if Matt's ever had the thought, what am I going to do when I run out of ideas for things to cover on my YouTube channel? Because I face that with Taxi TV all the time because I've been doing it for 15 years. It's like, how many times can you talk about a certain topic? So is the question, are there features that people don't take advantage of? That Taxi TV has got to be the biggest one. I mean, a good episode will get 1,000 views. And so many people, Matt included, have said to me, so much of my career, I could point back to Taxi TV and what I've learned on those episodes. And it's free. We don't charge, just like you don't charge for this. I've never wanted to charge for that, and I wonder why it is. We don't even care if we get, viral. It just doesn't matter to us because it's not the goal to, make $1,000 on that. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there that people don't take advantage of, and let's face it, if we're being completely honest, because of these little bastards, and technology in general, we live in a society now where, ChatGPT and AI in general, oh my God, I've been playing a lot with that and really liking what I'm learning.
Yeah.
We live in an instant gratification, instant answer society and life now. Everything comes at us so much faster and easier that I think that people who want to succeed in sync, that realize that it's a process, that it takes time, as we've heard a million times. I think not our Chuck, but another Chuck once coined the phrase. Somebody in our circle of friends once said, "It's a marathon, not a sprint."
Schlachter, probably.
Schlachter, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The other Chuck.
Yeah, the other Chuck. Yeah.
So, anyway. All that kind of breaks my heart because we talk about this a little bit around the office, that we put so much effort into stuff like our newsletter. I spend about 16 hours, one weekend out of every month, I will spend about 16 hours putting together that newsletter.
Wow.
Hardly anybody reads it. Maybe a few hundred people read it. And I sit there Sunday night, 11:30 at my kitchen counter going, why am I doing this? Well, maybe there's another MVB, which is what I call you around the office. Just easier saying Matt Vander Boegh. Anyway, so I'll say maybe there's another MVB out there. Who knows? Get to change one life. But we do have something. I'm glad you asked the question because at this year's Road Rally, I announced that I couldn't guarantee that this thing will be coming to fruition. It's highly probable, and it's more probable now than it was when I mentioned it in November, and that's called the Taxi Garage.
Yeah.
One of the things that has always frustrated us, because it frustrates our members, is when somebody submits a piece of really good music, but it's not even close to what the brief asked for. It's like, why did you send that country song in for an R&B request? Yeah. So the Taxi Garage will be a thing that doesn't cost money. It will be free to any taxi member. You will get a constantly running listing that says submit music that would be good in a production music library catalog and would be good for film and TV. The only criteria that the screener will screen it on is the quality there, and can I imagine a library owner or several library owners going, ooh, I'd like to have that in my catalog. Because that way we don't have to worry about does it match this brief or not, but it may be valuable. And part of the reason that we're doing it is it's embarrassing, frankly, to us when we don't forward something because it doesn't match the brief. If we did forward it when it doesn't match the brief, the receiving company would be like, why did you guys send this to me? And they would think twice about running any more listings with Taxi. So it's frustrating that we can't upset the library by sending them something, and then 6 months later they will sign that piece of music we didn't forward because the member sent it to them through a friend or something.
Right.
And so we look like idiots. And people love going on the forum and other public places going, yeah, Taxi rejected this and then I got it signed by that company. Well, it's because we couldn't send them something that they didn't want at that time. And if we can, and we do on occasion, send them something saying, look, this didn't match the brief. This is exceptional. You need to hear it. We know you and your taste and your client base well enough to know that this would work well in your library. And they'll say, thanks, send it over. But we can't do that 3 times in a week or 100 times in a year. That's kind of falls under the special favor category, even though we're doing them the favor. So the garage will be a collection of categorized, tagged music by Taxi's members that will sit in there, and we will send out either a weekly or bi-monthly email to our clients, who are all music libraries and editors and supervisors and what have you, and say, by the way, in the last 2 weeks we uploaded 29 of these, 14 of that, 2 of these, 6 of those. And they can go in there, and really it's going to be a race, because we know when we send out our compilations, our genre-specific compilations, which is another little benefit that we don't advertise, but we offer, or we do, that the libraries jump on it right away, and everything on those compilations will get signed almost immediately. So
That's good.
we'll refine the idea more once we get it out there and get it working.
Yeah.
But, it's like, that's going to, I was quoted from our developer that we've worked with for a very long time, $30,000 to build it. So spending $30,000 on something that doesn't bring in any more money in a down economy, probably not a wise business move, but it adds a dimension to Taxi. Nobody in the industry does what we do,
Yeah.
and that will kind of seal the deal. Nobody will do it anywhere close to as well as we do it, by us adding, here's another way for us to bring exposure to your music, even when you don't do this style or pitch it well for that. You can still get it heard by people, especially in that moment where they need something in a hurry and they don't have time to run a brief, and we've got it in the garage.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
Great idea.
thanks. So I hope that answers the question. I'm trying to think of.
The forum is a really good thing.
Yeah,
You
where
know,
you can
the-
learn from other.
Yeah,
Other
the forum,
members.
underutilized.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's that forum has been up there for 20 some years. There's 20 years of knowledge base built by guys like Matt
Yeah.
and the people who came before him and the people who came before them. There are generations of Taxi members that keep learning and passing down, learning, passing down, learning, perfecting, passing down. And so by the time it gets to you guys who are, let's say relatively new to the game, you're working from a knowledge base that's been perfected and refined by the best of the best over time. Wow. Thank you for the free tuition to Harvard.
Yeah.
Well, I could think of another school. But, so that's what the forum, I believe, brings to bear. And yet the vast majority of our members never use it.
So utilize it.
Yes.
Utilize it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked about this stuff, because
Well, they're important. I mean, that's free knowledge.
yeah, and
Why
it's good
not
knowledge.
take advantage of it? Especially if you're not getting forwards. You know, maybe read some of these forum comments.
And you can go onto the forum and post your music and say, this didn't get a forum or a forward for this listing. Post the listing text in full, and then post the entire feedback form from the screener, so that everybody can see everything. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the first 2 people be like, yeah, that should have gotten a forward. And if you look, they've got 21 comments. They're brand new to the forum.
Yeah.
They don't want to offend anybody. By the time it gets to the seasoned veterans who actually know where the bar is set and what's going on, those people be like, it's a pretty good track. I wouldn't have forwarded it either. Let me
Yeah.
tell you why, and give very specific advice, because you guys have earned your place in the world to do that through your own experience and expertise that you've built over the years. So I think the forum is maybe the greatest wasted resource that Taxi has that people don't use. But
Can I interrupt you on that for a
and
second?
they can look at TikTok instead.
Yeah. I forgot. I was going to mention something on those lines when describing this group. Is the feedback that we give here is incredibly helpful, but also like we're not pulling any punches, and nothing is really sugar coated here. And luckily, all these people have been around long enough that no one's taken anything personal. Like, it's not a personal affront or an insult.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
like,
trying to hurt anybody. You're trying to
this
help.
is just not ready, and here's why. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And so I think that people up here are every bit as detail oriented as the screeners would be. And if I can say one bit of criticism about some of the things we see at the road rally.
Yeah.
When there's listening panels, the ballroom will have hundreds of people in it, and you get these library owners who they're in a tough spot because you might play a song or a cue that is just not good.
Right.
And these poor library owners, they're like, God, we can all hear it. Like, it's not good.
Right.
But they don't want to say it. And so they sugarcoat things like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I kind of like, I could hear that being in whatever. And I'm looking at these guys because we're all sitting together. I'm like, what? Would someone give these people a dose of reality? And I think sometimes it can be way more harmful to hear the wrong things or to hear some type of compliment towards your music when the compliment is a little out of place, and what you need is something a little bit more realistically harsh. And so what we're really good about in this group is supplying that really objective feedback that it might seem like tough medicine to take to an outsider, but for us, like, we all get it. Like, this is just how you make your music better. And I'm gonna sound like this is tough love here, but it's not ready, and here's what you could do.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing I wanted to jump in on, and
I'm glad you
got me
did.
thinking about that with the forum. You see the new people in the forums, it'll be like, oh, I would have forwarded that, and then a seasoned guys will come in like, and I don't think so.
You are so right about the panelists at the road rally. There have been times where, and virtually everybody on those panels, almost all of them, are good friends of mine. People I've known for some of them
mine
are very,
too.
very close friends. And I just want to say to them, come on. Because I think that people in the audience know, but I think that especially library owners, it's such a competitive business for them. They don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to have a public, couple thousand people, 1,000 people in the ballroom. They don't want to have them going, God, what a dude.
Simon Cowell over here.
Yeah, because then he's afraid that, well, none of these people that have the right stuff are going to want to sign with me. They're going to sign with my competitors. So I got to find a way to deliver this in as gentle a way as possible. So I understand their motivation for having that fear, but you're 100% right. It doesn't help anybody.
I'll get up there. I'll give them some tough love.
Oh, man, you and I could have so much fun.
Yeah.
First day of the road rally, tough love only.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, thank you for that answer.
You're welcome. Sorry it's so long-winded.
I think
I'm
people,
famous for
if
that.
you're watching out there, just like all these guys, constructive criticism is what people need, and use the forums, use all the tools, ask people, peer edit each other. That's key, right? Like, go to other people that do this. We can't do it by ourselves.
But yet everybody kind of has to, because everybody's
Everyone has to do it,
isolated in a home studio.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
So-
That's a whole taxi
Yeah.
TV right there.
So ask for help. There's plenty of people out there in the world that'll help, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great advice.
All right.
Glad you came. And volunteers.
Who's gonna do it? Come on.
Don't be shy.
I'll go.
Okay, come on, Kyle.
Yeah, we've only
But be
got
ready.
22 minutes left.
Oh, gee.
Okay, we'll be quick. Hey Matt, nice to see you.
What's
Hi.
up?
Hello. Nice
Hi.
to meet you, Kyle.
Nice
My
to
brother
meet you.
Sean is over there. I'm speaking on behalf of
I
both
kept
of us.
looking at you guys going, they've got to be cousins or brothers or something.
I'll move my mouth so it's like we're both talking.
Yeah, we go way back. So, our question is, we are like performers,
Okay.
similar to a bunch of the guys here, and our question was, what are your thoughts on musicians and artists who record and release music for like streaming platforms, who are also wanting to submit for taxi and to music libraries? Like, kind of how balancing both aspects of it, because it's a little different from each other, like the people that are only going
very
through Spotify
different.
and only going through taxi and things like that. But like, what advice would you give to artists that are submitting stuff, or even artists that are like, oh, I kind of want to do original songs and it's not exactly matching the prompt?
How many of you watched the Beatles documentary that was done by what's his name? Peter Jackson. It was out like a year ago.
Get back.
The most mind-blowing thing from that documentary for me was the ease at which all four of the Beatles, but especially John and Paul, could just hear anybody else's song in their head. Like, oh yeah, let's play a little quickie 2-minute ditty of this guy's song. And they would actually, in some cases, make it better than the original hit, with just two guitars screwing around, killing time. The reason I believe is because they spent those 10,000 hours playing at the Cavern Club and wherever else. So that was a moment that re-cemented my deep appreciation for musicians who play live. It is a whole different mind. The three disciplines are completely different. In a live situation, you're trying to send the audience home going, that was great, I would go see them again. That's your goal. In a Spotify or streaming situation, it's to have everybody tell their friends, have you heard this song? So that their friends do it and you make some money from that. In Taxi, you're playing to an audience of one. And that's different than trying to please a room full of people or a universe full of people. You are trying to please an audience of one, which is initially the screener. Does it meet the brief? And then if it gets forwarded to the library, once again, it's an audience of one, because the library owner is going to decide, do I keep it in or take it out or not put it in at all? And then ultimately, you're going to be underappreciated when you show up on an episode of White Lotus and the plot is gripping, the camera work is great, the lighting's amazing, and the music is amazing. You bring everything together. It's a high-quality production. You know, it was a bad example because the music's so freaking cool on that show, you can't forget it. But you know what I'm saying. It's like audience of many live, audience of many streaming, audience of one going through the steps it takes to end up in a TV show where you're going to get heard by millions and not noticed by anybody.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the music is so low in the mix, somebody's having a conversation on a dance floor and it's coming out of a jukebox 50 feet away, and even your own family's going, Dad, I can't hear anything. So what was the question?
No, I was kind of just getting lost in the lore. Like I just wanted to hear more of what you were saying with White Lotus because I wanted to.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, just going back to thinking about the artists that are out there that might be hesitant about starting with Taxi, or maybe are in the middle of Taxi and have had some forwards, or are still kind of waiting for that first forward, and just trying to figure out like how should they be approaching it. And honestly, as a group, that was one of the bigger earlier conversations. Johnny, our good buddy back there, hi Johnny, he could talk about this more, but we kind of started figuring out more of like the rubric almost of like what we think a Taxi screener is looking for in a song, as opposed to a classic traditionally written song of like intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus.
Oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It's a whole different animal. It's still hands-on instruments, and it's still notes coming out of instruments, and it's still production, arrangement, all that stuff. But, you know, there are Volkswagens, which are built for everyday use and very practical and good at that. And then there are pickup trucks that are built, you know, but they both have four wheels and an engine. There are all these similarities, but they have a different purpose in life. And then you have a Maserati, which is for whatever, to make Steve Baird happy. I don't know. It's really intelligent of you to ask that question, because I don't think most people ever think about, okay, so I play weddings. I was talking to Paul Otten, one of our more successful longtime members, the other day. He and his brother were in the most successful wedding band in New Jersey. It was just, or in Ohio, Cincinnati to be specific. And it was just the two of them. But they were heavily in demand and making really good money at just being a two-man wedding band. And then he discovered sync. But I think he quickly figured out the rubric, as you call it, of sync, which is we're not trying to have people go, that's an amazing song, I love it, I would listen to that in my car. if they're thinking that, it might actually not be a great song for a scene in a TV show because it might steal the thunder from the dialogue.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's got to be good enough that it sounds authentic and real.
In that first second.
Yeah, and believable. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the 1 second thing, and I've heard that every inch of my sync career. We've demonstrated it on stage with probably 3 different either editors or music supervisors who are auditioning stuff, and they can tell that first guitar note is too crunchy. It'd never work in that scene. They can tell, oh, this one's too lilty and light, wouldn't work in that scene. And then Goldilocks walks in, and it's just right. And everybody in the room knows it. It's one of those moments where, again, we all know together when the right thing has been picked, and now we're all crossing our fingers, quietly hoping that it works against picture. And then they play it against picture, and he goes, and let's say it's Mason Cooper or somebody saying they're doing it, he'll go, that's pretty good. But as most good music supervisors will do, they won't settle for pretty good. They'll challenge their own pick to see if they can make it even better. And after a challenge or two, if they can't, then they'll say, okay, that one is good enough. Unless, of course, it was in a prime spot, like right in the middle of a montage, like a season ending or series ending montage where something really big or tragic happens that they've got to have something that's a 1 in a million pick. Maybe they'll even put more effort into it for that. Anyway, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to talk with you.
Likewise. Okay, we've got time. Good. I looked down my watch and thought, oh my God, we're out of time.
I'll go.
Come on,
Johnny.
Johnny. It's not like it's live TV or anything. I mean, it's just taxi TV. Hello, everybody.
Michael, I'm Johnny.
Hi, Johnny.
Yeah. So I teach with Matt over at CWI. And when I was in my second semester, I was given a tip by another teacher as they came in and did a review of my teaching.
Okay.
And it was, if you ask your class, do you have any questions? Count to 10 before you move on. And through the years, I've always done that little silent count in my head of waiting the 10 seconds. And it's amazing to me how many times at about the 8-second mark,
Somebody
all
calls one
start
up.
getting, you gotta give the students time to think of what their question is. So
Right.
that little tip has helped me as a teacher, and it can be like a little pithy statement: count to 10. So my
We should
question
do that
for
on the
you-
panels with listening panels. What'd you think of that? Count to 10.
So my question for you is, through the years, is there some little short, tip that you've been given by somebody in your life that has made a difference in helping you to be more effective, or that you would think would be good for other people to connect to?
It's going to take more than 8 seconds. My father and I were never close. We weren't, it wasn't a horrible relationship. It just wasn't an episode of Lassie or anything. It was, we're fine, but we never really had a lot of heart-to-hearts. And it wasn't until he got much older and eventually passed away at 97 that I realized a few of the quotes that he gave me that I believe were of his own making were sort of priceless. And the one that I always go back to with Taxi members is all musicians, and frankly, I wish I'd remembered this or heard it when I was working with Neil Young on those sessions in Fort Lauderdale. It was just the 3 of us in the room. My father always said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. He might have actually said, just because you can doesn't mean it's a good idea, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. I can always, back in my days producing, I could always hear how another instrument could go in there. I could always hear how a different kind of reverb could be used. I could always hear all kinds of things, but
Can't get your dogs right
Can
now.
hear doggies.
I think that's a really important thing to remember based on the feedback that I've gotten from Taxi members for 33 years now, which is their music that gets the most placements is almost always the simplest version of whatever. So I think I've had this conversation with you. Like, some of your best placements, or things that get placed most frequently, are your dumbest little ditties that are incredibly simple that you banged out in 45 minutes.
Or even worse, the drum and bass only mix.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So on last week's episode, I did an episode where I showed waveforms, or something approximating a waveform, and showed people edit points and developmental arc, which is something a lot of people don't really understand. But stories have a developmental arc. A book does, a movie does. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it should feel like it's going somewhere, moving forward with purpose to an end point, which is this moment where we're all satisfied because we got to the end. So one of the pieces that we played that was like an easy breezy, light pop rock track that could have been used in a corporate video, it could have been used in we're having a great day riding down a country road on our bicycles, a lot of potential uses for it. Whoever was the person that wrote and produced and arranged that track had so much genius going on at the time, because rather than, and I'm going to recreate this going this direction, this direction. So rather than starting out small, getting bigger, and then going to a B section, breaking it down, getting small, then getting bigger, then getting bigger, didn't follow any of those rules. Somehow it still felt like it was moving forward, but the genius was that he, almost as the arranger, producer, composer of that track, delivered each section thought of as stems. If I were an editor, might I like a really light, delicate section that's just the root instruments of this, but played a little lighter? And then later on, it had fuller development. But it wasn't about the normal thing where it builds, B section, builds, and we're out. It was kind of all over the place, but somehow still made sense. And I've probably listened to it 5 or 10 times since that show so that I can absorb that. Should I ever go back and have the time of my life to go in the studio and make records again, I want to remember what that person did. And so that is the answer to the question, which is, the thing that I've probably learned that I have leaned on the most, or the idea, concept that I've cherished the most, was the one I got from my dad, who I generally didn't share a lot of that stuff with. But Dad, that's your
Awesome.
Your gift to me was, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Awesome.
So
Thanks
there
for
you
sharing.
go.
Yes, it's good stuff.
Thank you, Michael. I never would have admitted that if my dad were alive. That was what was messed up about the relationship. It was probably all me. God, I feel like I need a shrink now.
Yeah. You can lay on the couch and tell me how it makes you feel.
Right.
Anybody else?
We've got some
Oh,
time.
Brendan, yeah, come
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Hey, Michael.
Decomposer. I love it.
Yeah.
Check out that shirt.
Yeah.
I want to get that shirt. That's
Thanks for
awesome.
being here, Michael. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
I'm Brendan, longtime musician friend with Matt. In
We
fact,
go way back.
I played on those rock operas that
Yep.
he did back
What the
in
hell are you
Steve's
thinking?
studio.
Rock operas? Like those. Come on. How many rock operas can we all name? One, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
Tommy?
Tommy.
Yeah.
I was thinking Tommy. So two. Right.
Yeah. My 11-year-old son wanted me to tell you that he thinks you have done a great job with Taxi.
Oh, thank you.
And that you're a great example of somebody who built a business from scratch
Oh.
and has created this amazing community and culture. And he's a big part of what I do
you
at
should have
home.
brought him.
Yeah. But so my question is kind of about that is, you talked a little bit about the beginning of Taxi, how you met with Rob and met with some of the A&R people, and I was just curious if was Taxi a success right from the beginning, and was there
Hell no.
was there ever a point for you where you felt like, I don't know if this is going to work, or you had those doubts creep in, and if so, like how do you handle that personally?
Here's another lesson from my dad. which is so ironic to me. I left a six-figure job with $22,000 in the bank and gave a company Beamer back to the job, and had to make that $22,000 last while I was launching a company that had never been done in the history of the world before on this thing called the internet that nobody knew about yet. I launched Taxi on AOL when they only had 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
I had to pay them $1,100 to build what is now like a web page, but back then they called it an area. And nobody was signing up because only 100,000 people on the whole friggin' planet were on AOL. I was way ahead of my time on that. I thought that everybody would jump on that online stuff like in a minute. So then we started printing listings on paper and stapling them by hand and folding the 3 or 4 pages by hand and writing the addresses. A label program didn't even exist to create mailing labels.
Man.
My wife and I would sit there till 2 o'clock in the morning, hand addressing thousands of pieces of
jeez.
promotional mails going out. Why am I talking about my dad? So my wife was enrolled in a double master's program, and she was in school and studying all the time. She was probably 30-ish, and I was 37, I think, when I started the company. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I never wanted her to know because I was horribly embarrassed, but we got eviction notices pretty much every month. For our bed, it was a mattress on the floor. We had very little in life. And I remember if I got one membership check in for $300, I would literally run to my car and drive over to the bank so it would stop something from bouncing that might have bounced 30 seconds later. It was not pretty. I've always said anybody who starts a business and doesn't cry themselves to sleep on numerous occasions hoping that God takes their life in the middle of the night is either a liar or a criminal. Because every one of my friends that has successfully started a business, we all share that same story. You see these guys in Silicon Valley. I just had one great idea. If you sat them down and talked to them privately and personally, they would all tell you they've thought about putting a gun in their mouth. They wish that they hadn't done this in front of their family. They wish that a million things they could wish for. And in my case, I asked my dad because my parents went broke at 65 years old. I grew up in a small farm town in Illinois. My parents owned one of the local stores. They were not rich. They were not poor. As I was telling Matt earlier, we had a 65 Pontiac Catalina with no FM radio and no electric windows and I think no air conditioning. So, it was a decent car, but nothing fancy. We definitely weren't a Cadillac or a Mercedes family. My point in all this is Chicago got bigger, the suburbs got bigger, the malls came very close to my hometown. The merchants in downtown Ottawa, Illinois died a very quick death over a period of about 3 years. My parents had no money. My dad was 65 years old, worked hard his whole life, literally had nothing. They had a soda machine that brought in $35 a month, and he owned like 1/100% of an oil well that he bought in the 60s that generated like $1,100 a month. So he got Social Security, but they had no money. And I said to him, he started a business hand delivering salads and wraps that my mother made in the kitchen of our house. He put them in clamshells, drove them an hour and a half, 2 hours into Chicago every day, pushed a little cart around selling sandwiches to lawyers, accountants, and other people in these office buildings, and passed away a few years ago as a multimillionaire. And I said to him, Dad, when I turned 65, I said, how the hell did you, because I know what it takes to start a business. I know the pain, the heartbreak, the energy, literally if you're awake, you're working. There is no day off. I understand all this way too well. And I said, how did you find the energy and the persistence to keep going? And he said, I want to get this right. He said it was a matter of survival. If you don't make money, you don't eat. I didn't have a choice but to succeed. So Taxi was the same thing for me. I walked away from a 6-figure job. did something. It's not like I was opening another pizza shop or another bowling alley or another car dealership. I was doing something that anybody who'd done anything even remotely like taxi was probably a scam artist, you know, a song shark, just taking money from people. Yeah, kid, let me get your song to somebody, and they weren't doing it. I didn't grow up that way. It's not the way my family was raised, and not the ethics that we grew up with. So the pressure on me to actually deliver something that was this new, this revolutionary, that was 100% ethical all the time and actually delivered results for people, the pressure was immense, and it remains immense today.
Yeah.
It ain't easier. It's not. But thank you for asking that question.
Well, it's awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
If you guys have more questions, we can go 15 minutes long. If you don't, we can wrap her up. Whatever you guys want to do. You want to take 8 seconds to think about it?
Better count to 10.
I got a really quick question.
Come on up.
Really easy one. This one will only go 30 seconds longer.
Yeah, but my answer will be 12 minutes long.
I bet it won't on this one. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate
welcome.
you being here, and I appreciate Matt that I get to be
He's
here.
the rock star.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you've kept this thing alive and moving forward and coming up with ways to keep it fresh and productive so that they can change their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt. That's what it sounds like to clap all by yourself.
We talked a lot about philosophical issues, you know, up to this point, which is great, which is what I love to do also. But I have a really simple, straightforward question, hopefully. I'm just wondering, you know, if you submit to a specific listing, like I'm a songwriter, I guess, more than a sync person, also like these guys probably. But trying to learn, you know, how to adjust what I do to making it more palatable to film and TV.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, if there's a request for like an indie pop song, for example, and I don't get it forward, I get the feedback from it from a particular screener. My question is, maybe I think, yeah, okay, they're right, it didn't fit that listing, okay, but another listing comes up that I think it fits for, you know, possibly, in my opinion, you know, and is it going to be the same screener if it's another indie pop? You know, if it's a similar
that's a
kind
great
of
question. I've got a very honest answer for
Okay.
you. If it's in a genre that's pretty popular that we tend to run frequently because people ask us to run them frequently, and we tend to get a fair number of submissions. You know, like on something like indie pop, we probably get 75 to 150 submissions for that.
Okay.
If it were indie pop for a TV commercial with a $5,000 sync fee, we'd probably get 200 for it. But a lot of people think, oh, they must get 5,000 submissions for this and 10,000 for that. Sometimes we get 4 submissions, you know, for like Dutch heavy metal with female background vocals. We'll get four submissions, and they'll be really good because only somebody who's really serious about that would do it. So, if your question is, if I submit
to another indie pop listing, is it going to be the same screener? Because maybe
So-
they have something in their head that they didn't like about the song, but maybe another person.
no, well, you were
whatever.
doing so well until you had that
Well,
thought.
no, I understand all
But
the
yeah, let me
subtleties,
clarify,
you know,
because
does
it's a
it fit
great
the-
question. No,
does
I
it
don't think
fit
anybody's
the
ever
genre?
asked this before, so I love it. I think that on a popular genre like indie pop, where we run several of, maybe 2 or 3 of those a month, and we get maybe 100-ish submissions for them, that we have more than one screener that does it. If it's something very niche-y like Dutch heavy metal with female background vocals, we've probably only got one screener who's truly a qualified expert.
Sure.
And just so you know, not only do they have to be good at indie pop, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
indie
an
pop.
example.
Well, what the hell is indie pop anyway? Carpenters would be indie pop now
Sure.
if they weren't on a major label. But we have people that know how to screen indie pop for record labels, and different people that know how to screen indie pop for sync,
Sure.
because it's a different animal.
Yeah.
Just like playing
Right.
for a live audience or trying to get stuff, you know, to go viral on streams. So we are that specific in our choice of screeners. We don't take somebody. Country is a great example of that. Country, we have screeners working on Music Row in Nashville that will screen for stuff that's going to be pitched to Nashville artists, because they know that way better than we could. They don't know a hill of beans about Country for Sync, because they're so imbued with the sense of you got to have, as they call it in Nashville, furniture in the room. You know, I walked into the smoky bar with peanut shells on the floor, wearing my 3-inch heel cowboy boots. She was wearing her little yellow sundress. You can't get that in a movie or TV show because there's just too much detail that's going to just knock it out of contention. And conversely, if you took a country song that would work in sync, you know, I met her and my whole world changed, that ain't going to fly in Nashville. Where's the furniture?
Right.
So
Sure.
we are that picky and that careful about who listens to your music.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
asking that.
Appreciate it.
You guys ask great questions. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel good, but when Matt asked me great questions when he interviewed me like a month or so ago, whenever that was, and he said, yeah, a lot of those were from these guys. And so, yeah, I need to come to Idaho to get asked questions more often.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you again. Thank you on behalf of these guys and everybody out there in TV land who is inspired by what you've done with this group and the fact that you've not just kept it alive, but kept it moving forward. It's like a developmental arc in a piece of music, you know. And the end goal is to have everybody in this room achieve whatever level of dream they have for their music.
Yeah, absolutely.
By being exposed to other people who have the same or similar dreams. And so, thank you guys for all coming.
Yeah,
and,
thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for hosting. And with that, I'm going to go over and do what I do every week, which is... there we go. All right, I will see you next week on another exciting episode of Taxi TV. Woo, TV Live by you guys. So that about does it for this week's episode. Thank you so much to Matt Vander Boegh and his wonderful group of people for having me and Taxi TV join them for their regular meeting, and Matt for sharing his his studio with us. It was a great time, and we'll see you next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live, baby.